Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jadi, we're from group 5 and today we're gonna present adjective, verb, and adverb phrase. And members of our group is Alta Fadel Fernanda Vito, Anissa Dwiendra, dan saya sendiri Kartika Maharani. Untuk Vito-nya hari ini dia tidak bisa ikut presentasi karena ada urusan. Jadi yang presentasi Anissa dan saya sendiri. Okay, so we're gonna talk about adjective phrase, verb phrase, and adverb phrase. Okay, the first one is adjective phrase. Adjective phrase is a collection of words that describe an object or objects in a sentence. An adjective in an adjective phrase can appear at the beginning, middle, or end of a sentence and can be used before or after the subject or object. The position may be before or after a noun as an attributive to form a noun phrase, or after a linking verb as a predicative. For example, extremely happy is an adjective phrase. Grayish brown, beautifully painted, too spicy, or not too far. The next one is attributive adjective. In simple terms, attributive can be said to be an adjective that generally comes before a verb that has not been modified. For example, I like very dark chocolate, and then the beautifully carved frames are priceless. Okay, the next one is predicative adjective. Predicative is the opposite of attributive. In simple terms, it is an adjective that usually comes after the modified verb. For example, the frames are beautifully carved and priceless. Tommy is extremely smart. Okay, the next one will be explained by Anissa.
An adjective phrase always has an adjective acting as the head. The adjective phrase should also contain words or phrases before or after the head, modifiers, and complements. And the first one is adjective. For the example, that's a lovely cake, and the lovely is the head. The next one is adjective preceded by a modifier. That soap is pretty cold, and pretty is the modifier. Adjective plus a modifier after it. The food was tasty enough. Adjective plus a word or phrase which is required to complete its meaning. She was aware of the danger of traveling alone. Adjective preceded by a modifier plus a word or phrase which is required to complete its meaning. We're not very keen on having an activity holiday.
Okay, the next one is verb phrase. In linguistics, a verb phrase is a syntactic unit composed of at least one verb and its dependents. It could be objects, complements, and other modifiers, but not always including the subject. Verbs are words that demonstrate an action, for example, talk, dance, walk, etc. When combined with linking verbs such as is, must, will, and has, they form verb phrases. For example, she smells the bread. Smells is the verb. She can smell the bread. Can smell is a verb phrase. A verb phrase can be the predicate of the clause or sentence. It functions as the verb in a sentence even when it has more than one word. For example, Lovita was walking slowly to the class. Was walking is the predicate of the sentence. And then you should wait before going swimming. Should wait is the predicate of the sentence. When a verb phrase functions as other than a verb, it's called a verbal phrase. A verbal phrase acts as an adverb or adjective. The phrase would include the verbal or participle, gerund, or infinitive, and any modifiers, complements, or objects. For example, the cat watched as the two puppies fought over a bone. The verb phrase watch functions as the action. And then the second example is as the cat watched, the two puppies fought over a bone. The verbal phrase as the cat watched functioned as an adverb. Meanwhile, the verb is fought. Okay, the next one is adverb phrase, and it will be explained by Anissa.
An adverb phrase is a group of two or more words that function as an adverb in a sentence. It can stand alone or can be modified by other words. Adverb phrase typically answer the questions how, where, why, or when something was done. For the example, I came here yesterday. It answered the question when. He went to the island to find God. It answered the question why. And the last one is opera is when a guy gets stabbed in the back and instead of bleeding he sings. Is answer the question where. The format of adverb phrase. The first one is prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase is headed by a preposition like in, on, near. For the example, he was standing in the corner. The second is infinitive phrase. An infinitive phrase is headed by an infinitive verb like to play, to jump. For the example, she went to Florence to paint. The last one is an adverb with an intensifier. An adverb with an intensifier like very, extremely, really is also an adverbial phrase. For the example, he answered you very quickly. So that is all from our group. If you have any question, you can ask us. Thank you.
Um, Before we open the Q&A sessions, we have some videos for these materials.
To make college easier because students have a lot on their
Sebentar ya.
Hello, everyone. Today we are going to talk about adjective phrases. Adjectives help you to be more descriptive in your writing, but adjective phrases take it even a step further. Let's find out more. Let's begin by reviewing what an adjective is. An adjective is a word that describes a noun or pronoun. Remember, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of the noun. So instead of saying Mr. Riven, you could say he or him. Adjectives tell you what kind, how much, how many, or which one. Let's look at some examples of adjectives. Blue, 6, happy, friendly, silly, smart, spicy, muddy. These are all words that you can use to describe a noun or a pronoun, such as the sky is blue. I have 6 students in my classroom. He is a happy dog. She is a friendly teacher. The little girl is silly. My neighbor is very smart. I love spicy food, and the dog is muddy. You can see how these words help describe that noun. So when we think about adjective phrases, what is the difference? Well, an adjective phrase is a group of words that modify or describe a noun or pronoun in a sentence. Notice that I put in bold group of words. That's really the only difference. Let's look at the example. The final exams were incredibly difficult. Our noun is exams. So we need to think about the words that are being used to modify or describe the exams. Then you will see incredibly difficult is underlined. That is our adjective phrase. It is the group of words that is used to describe or modify the noun exams. The adjective phrase can be placed before or after the noun or pronoun in the sentence. Before we move on, it's important to know the difference between adjectives and adjective phrases because they're quite similar. The only difference between using adjectives and an adjective phrase is really the number of words that you choose. Let's look at 2 examples. By using just a simple adjective, you could say, the smelly dog is sleeping. Dog is our noun, which is highlighted in bold. Smelly is our adjective. One simple word, the smelly dog is sleeping. An adjective phrase is different because it uses a group of words. We can take the same sentence and make it a little more descriptive by using an adjective phrase. The disgustingly smelly dog is sleeping. Instead of just using smelly, we added the word disgustingly. Therefore, disgustingly smelly is our adjective phrase. Okay, let's look at some more examples. In each of these 5 sentences, I have the noun or pronoun highlighted. Let's look at number 1. This pie is very delicious and extremely expensive. What words or groups of words are used to describe the pie? You should have answered to yourself, very delicious and extremely expensive. These are our 2 adjective phrases, the 2 different groups of words used to describe our noun, pie. Sentence 2. Everyone was extremely delighted when the winner was announced. Everyone is our pronoun. So what are the words used to describe everyone? The adjective phrase should be extremely delighted. Sentence 3. The new outfit was very pricey but really beautiful. What word or words are used to describe
Verbs and verb phrases. Verb. A verb is a word that expresses an action or a state of being. Every sentence has at least one verb. Many sentences have more than one. Here are some examples of verbs. Play.
I played drums.
Play is an action verb. It's something that you can do. Is.
Pizza is delicious.
Is expresses a state of being. Are trimming.
We're trimming the tree.
Are trimming is a verb phrase. But before we get too far into verb phrases, you need to understand helping verbs. Helping verbs help verbs show when things happen. They also help us see whether something was completed or not. Here are the helping verbs.
Am, is, are, was, be, being, has, have, had, did, do, does, can, could, would, should, shall, will.
Helping verbs also help us make verb phrases. You cannot make a verb phrase without helping verbs. Because a verb phrase is a verb and at least one helping verb. Here is an example of a verb phrase.
Katie was writing her essay about friendship.
So the verb in this sentence is not was and is not writing, but is was writing. The verb is both of those. This sentence has a verb phrase. So what is the helping verb in this sentence? What is it doing? The helping verb is was, and it's working with writing to show that the event occurred in the past. Katie was writing in the past. Here are some more examples of verb phrases.
The mummy is coming for us.
What is the verb phrase in the above sentence? Is coming. It's not just coming, and it's not just is, but rather is coming. The verb is both. Here's another example of a verb phrase.
Mary was walking through the mall, talking on her phone and drinking coffee.
What is the verb phrase in this sentence? It's a little tricky. Was walking. Talking. Drinking. This is a compound verb phrase with many parts. Each expresses what Mary was doing. Walking, talking, drinking. And was shows us that it was happening in the past. Here's another example of a verb phrase.
Officer Lee has been working with her partner Bones for a long time.
What is the verb phrase in this sentence? This one, again, is a little bit trickier because it has a longer verb phrase. Has been working. This one has two helping verbs. Has been. And we'll discuss more why we use constructions like has been in the lesson about conjugating verbs. So in review, verbs express actions or states of being. Helping verbs help verbs to show when something occurred, if something occurred, and whether it was completed or not. And verbs combine with helping verbs to make verb phrases.
Gak ada yang tahu apa yang akan terjadi sampai kamu maju duluan.
In this video, we're going to talk about adverbial phrases. Here's a definition for adverbial phrase. An adverbial phrase is a group of words that functions as an adverb. Let's examine what that means. Well, an adverb is a word that modifies a verb, and it usually tells us how, when, where, or why an action occurs. So let's look at an example. He walks oddly. Oddly is an adverb. It modifies the verb walks and it tells us how he walks. This is a normal adverb. Now look at this one. He walks with a limp. This time we have a group of words telling us how he walks. So this group of words is a phrase. It's an adverbial phrase and it modifies the verb walks just like oddly did. Let's look at an example with when. Toby is talking now. Now is an adverb. It modifies the verb is talking and it tells us when. Now let's look at an adverbial phrase. Tony is talking in a minute. Well, now we have a group of words. This group of words is modifying is talking, and it tells us when. It's an adverbial phrase. Let's do a where one. Sally lives here. Here is an adverb. It modifies the verb lives and tells us where Sally lives. Sally lives around the corner. Now we have a group of words that modifies the verb lives. It tells us where Sally lives. Now, it's common for adverbs to tell us why an action occurs, but you can't give a reason using one word. So adverbs that tell us why are usually adverbial phrases. She came to Paris to find me. To find me. It's an adverbial phrase modifying the verb came to tell us why. Okay, let's look at the definition again. An adverbial phrase is a group of words that functions as an adverb. Hopefully that makes more sense now. Okay, let's get rid of some of that. I want you to look at these words in the adverbial phrases. With, in, and around. You might recognize these as prepositions. We have a whole lesson and video on prepositions, but prepositions are words that appear in a sentence to show the relationship between one word and another. So, look at the top one, with a limp. With is a preposition. With a limp is called a prepositional phrase. It's also an adverbial phrase, as we've covered. The next one, in is a preposition. In a minute is a prepositional phrase. It's also an adverbial phrase. Around the corner is a prepositional phrase. It's also an adverbial phrase. But look at this one, to find me. In this example, to is not a preposition. It is part of the infinitive verb to find. So, adverbial phrases can be prepositional phrases or infinitive phrases. Look up at the first example, he walks oddly. What if we said he walks very oddly? We now have a group of words functioning as an adverb. Well, yes, the term very oddly would classify as an adverbial phrase. Let's get rid of most of that. I've deliberately left these three examples because we're going to see them again. Let's quickly summarize the point we've just covered. So there are three main types of adverbial phrase. A prepositional phrase, remember this example. An infinitive phrase, and remember this example. And then an adverb with an intensifier. That's a word like very, extremely, or completely. Okay, these are the three main types of adverbial phrase. Hopefully now you're starting to get a good feel for what adverbial phrases are. But before we end this video, I want to cover two more points. Here's the first one. Look at this example. We know that that's a normal adverb, and we know that it's modifying is talking. We know that this is an adverbial phrase, and it's also modifying is talking. But look at this. Tony is talking when the next person finishes. This looks like an adverbial phrase, but actually, if we were to be more specific, it's an adverbial clause. It is an adverbial clause because it includes its own subject and its own verb. That's what makes it a clause. So, just be aware of the distinction between adverbial phrase and adverbial clause. We have a whole lesson on adverbial clauses. Okay, that was the first point I want to cover. Here is the second point. Look at this example. We will serve dinner at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock is our adverbial phrase. It is modifying will serve. But look at this. At 6 o'clock we will serve dinner. Well, our adverbial phrase is still modifying will serve, but this time it's at the front. And notice there is a comma. So, the writing tip is this. When you have an adverbial phrase or clause for that matter, at the front of a sentence, it is normal to offset it with a comma. This aids reading as it shows where the main point starts. Let's look at a couple of more examples. In July 1936, temperatures reached 106 degrees Fahrenheit in New York. Well, look, here we have an adverbial phrase of time, and here we have an adverbial phrase of place. Notice that we have a comma before the one that is at the start of the sentence. And just to hammer this point home, let's switch them up a bit. Now we have our adverbial phrase of place at the start and our adverbial phrase of time at the end. But once again, the adverbial phrase at the start of the sentence is the one that gets the comma. There is more about this on the website. I want to leave you with this slide, the one that shows you the three main types of adverbial phrase: a prepositional phrase, an infinitive phrase, or an adverb with an intensifier. But don't forget to take this writing tip with you. When the adverbial phrase is at the start of a sentence, it is a good practice to offset it with a comma. That's all.
Okay, that's it from the video. Is there any question?
Okay, good morning. Truly sorry for my lateness in joining your class. So today's topic will be about apa sayangku. Would you please kindly show me the